In the realms of marriage and divorce, the strong-willed princess played a significant role in modernizing royal romance. During Elizabeth II's coronation at Westminster Abbey in 1953, attention was meant to be on the new monarch, but it was Princess Margaret who captured the spotlight. At the televised ceremony, she affectionately picked a piece of lint from the lapel of Peter Townsend, a war hero serving the royal family, which ignited a royal scandal. This was not her only scandal. From her dramatic near-marriage to her very public divorce, Margaret's tumultuous love life kept her in the royal limelight for years. Her star-crossed romances were the subject of gossip, tabloid speculation, and controversy, yet they played an essential role in modernizing perceptions of royal love. Margaret's relationship with Townsend began in the early 1950s. Worldly, beautiful, and charming, she was deeply attracted to the dashing veteran. However, Townsend was deemed an unsuitable match for royalty. Despite their affair being kept secret for a time, it soon became public knowledge that Group Captain Townsend had divorced his wife and proposed to Margaret, who accepted. At that time, divorce was seen as scandalous, and it was unthinkable for a royal to marry a commoner who was also divorced. The Church of England frowned upon divorce, presenting a significant challenge for Margaret, especially since her sister, Queen Elizabeth II, was the head of the church as part of her role as sovereign. Marrying Townsend could imply that the Queen endorsed divorce. Another complication arose from the Royal Marriages Act of 1772. This law, stemming from King George III's disapproval of his brother's marriages to commoners, granted the monarch ultimate authority over royal marriages. Under this law, all descendants of George II required royal permission to marry. Failing that, they could marry after a year if both Houses of Parliament approved. Margaret needed her sister's consent to marry Townsend. If she couldn't obtain it, she could appeal to Parliament for permission to wed, but this would have created an even greater scandal than her relationship with a divorced man. Social norms made this potential union unpalatable. Family history: Elizabeth ascended to the throne only after her uncle abdicated to marry a divorced commoner, made the request seem outrageous. Consequently, it appeared impossible for Margaret to marry Townsend. Elizabeth, preparing for a Commonwealth tour following her coronation, asked her sister to wait. Meanwhile, both Parliament and the public expressed their disapproval of the match. However, contrary to how the Crown depicts Elizabeth as ultimately blocking the marriage for the sake of the monarchy, in reality, Elizabeth began to accept the idea. She even devised a plan that would allow Margaret to marry Townsend while remaining part of the family. As explained by the BBC, this compromise would have amended the Royal Marriages Act so that royal permission would no longer be necessary. There was a catch, however. In order to marry Townsend under this plan, Margaret would have had to renounce her right to the throne, as well as that of her children. It remains unclear whether this was the reason Margaret ultimately ended her relationship with Townsend, but the scandalous near marriage never materialized. From a romantic perspective, the episode is a sad disappointment, commented the New York Daily News on the situation. However, Margaret's next relationship, her marriage in 1960 to the esteemed photographer Antony Armstrong-Jones, was equally romantic and, in time, just as scandalous. Their romance was kept secret until their engagement was announced, surprising the world. According to friends, Margaret decided to proceed with the marriage after learning that Townsend intended to remarry. On paper, Armstrong-Jones, later known as Lord Snowdon after their marriage, appeared to be a much more suitable match than Townsend. Although he was a commoner, he came from a family of respected artists and had never been divorced. However, after their extravagant wedding, their relationship quickly deteriorated. While the princess and the commoner were seen as helping to dismantle Britain's rigid class barriers, their private life soon became strained and troubled. Outwardly, the couple led a glamorous swinging 60s lifestyle filled with parties, fashionable friends, and art. In private, however, their relationship was falling apart. Issues such as infidelity, arguments, and excessive drinking and drug use put a strain on their marriage. They faced intense scrutiny from the public and British press, which closely monitored their every move. Things came to a head when tabloid photos emerged of Margaret on holiday with Roddy Llewellyn, a man 17 years her junior. Eventually, Margaret admitted that her marriage had failed. Andy Corsi, Snowdon's biographer, referred to it as the most serious marital drama in the royal family since the abdication. While Margaret could not marry a divorced man, she could become a divorced woman herself. In 1978, she became the first senior royal to divorce in 77 years. Despite being ridiculed in the press and relentlessly pursued by reporters, Margaret's divorce represented a more realistic view of love and marriage for the royal family. Since her marriage ended, other royals, most notably Charles and Diana, also went their separate ways. As national divorce rates rose, Margaret illustrated that royal life is far from perfect. Today, the Royal Marriages Act of 1772 has been abolished, and only the first 6 individuals in line to the throne are required to seek permission from the reigning monarch to marry. Although it is uncertain how much influence Margaret's high-profile love life had on Parliament's adoption of the new succession to the Crown Act, it is clear that her experiences reflected changing times, and that her tumultuous romances contributed to shifting British attitudes towards both marriage and divorce.